anybody could get a 4 point in the class. It's not just, in other words, it's not graded on a curve. If you do the material to get an A, you'll get an A. And if 90% of the class, which never really happens, gets an A, and if there's this approach where it isn't cutthroat, and if you do better, somebody else is going to do worse, or rather, everybody can do well in this class, it really produces this kind of sense of cohesiveness, and people are very, very helpful. So, so at any rate, with my flip classes, first half of the class I get problems, second half of the class I get a test, and as I will speak about later on today, the more you can test your students, the better. And if you think about it, everything I'm doing is testing, testing, testing. And at first it's low stakes, it's online, they know it's low stakes. Then it's a sort of practice test where it doesn't count at all, and then it's a real test where it really counts. But it's test, 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 and real learning is often not entirely pleasant. The best kind of learning, and we as teachers often don't want to acknowledge that. But the more you can test, the better off your class will be, and the better you'll do. So, of course, if you do flip kinds of classes, your in-class time is reduced. So I can travel here and speak, and my students are really happy. Did you know last semester? So I'm thinking, man, I'm only there half the week, half the days I'm supposed to be here. They were actually lined up afterwards. So the last day of class, there's this line out the door for people to say thank you, because it was so well, they felt it was very, very well organized. When they wanted to hear something I was saying, they could replay me forever, right? As much as they wanted. When we're actively in class, we're actively engaged. They know that we're actively engaging in the material that's appropriate. And everything's all laid out online. Students actually really love this. They don't feel cheated. They feel kind of better. And especially if you're making the material, think about it this way. It's a statistical truism to say that half of all teachers are accurate. So if you even just have your best lectures online and have everything well organized, it can be really helpful for people. So of course, like last week I was in Jamaica, and you can do a lot of things that people can't really do. So 2 non-problems. There's sometimes I hear this, students are readings to participate in the learning circumstances. I think active learning and collaborative learning is so common now that that's not too much of an issue at all anymore. And there is a worry that the noise level during the class will make it difficult to begin at the class. Sometimes if they're really wild and crazy, I'll say, whoever can hear me, raise your hand. And so someone will raise it. And then I'll say, and whoever else can still hear me, raise your hand. And so then raise your other hand. And then by the time you have 2 hands in the air, people just stop talking. So I didn't have to do that with So a comment from one of my former students says, she allows the students to talk over me during class. Provides for a bit of distraction, but most students don't abuse it. But the atmosphere is not stringent. Being more relaxed in the classroom can be very conducive to learning. And there's other advantages, of course. You realize what students get and what they don't get as you wander around. And the crystal clear lecture that you just gave and that everyone is completely stumped about, you actually get a feel for that. So you're not just their professor anymore, you're kind of their coach. And that is it's a very friendly way to introduce the material. So if you're doing more formal kinds of class teamwork in class, it's always important that the instructor form the teams. And this it helps avoid that kind of popularity contest sort of thing. and it reduces cheating, puts the instructor in control, and really it later improves the chances for people to get jobs. Why is this? There's this fellow named Mark Brennan who wrote a paper. How many of you know of this paper? The Strength of Big Ties? So Brennan submitted it to the American Sociological Review, and it was rejected because one of the reviewers said the manuscript should not be published for an endless series of reasons that immediately come to mind. Right? Who of us has gotten reviews like that? So he put it in a drawer for 3 years. And then he took it out, he just brushed it up some, and he resubmitted it to another journal. And it is now the most cited paper in, I think in all sociology. It is an incredibly important paper. So if your paper is rejected, just think like that. And what this paper did was it said, when people get jobs, they get jobs not because of how many good friends you have. It's how you get jobs from people you know. You just happen to know this guy. You don't know him really well. You know this woman who works here. You don't know her well. And so it's weak ties, not strong ties, that are how you get jobs. So I tell my engineering students about this study, and I say, so after I've already divided up the classroom, before the end of the period, because at the end of the period, a couple of them are going to come up to me and say, can I get on a little bit more, because my friends are on this one. And I tell them about the study. I say, what I'm doing is I'm assigning you the groups to be in, because this will help improve your chances long term. You'll know more people, and it's going to help you to get a job in the long run. So it's tiny statistical percentage stuff, but it actually keeps them from coming up to me and saying, "Can you move it to another group?" So when you're forming teams, you count off, as I learned, had told you about, warn them about the team switching, and then what I often do, and should have handed these out, or did they get handed out already? Okay, so you should have these turning student groups into effective teams, this paper. And so, there's, if you look on, let's see, there's right towards the very back of, let's see, it's on page 27 of this handout here. There's, it's a team expectations agreement. And what this is just basically the team on the very first day signs this, they come up with something they make up themselves about their agreement, like, I will respond to emails and so forth. And they all sign this agreement and they turn it into you. And that's a public acknowledgement of, I'm going to be a good team member. And does it solve all problems? No, but it actually does really help. I rarely get complaints about teams, that I certainly never get complaints about so-and-so doesn't answer his emails and isn't doing those kind of things. So I just get it back and keep it on. I also, at the very end of my syllabus, I put this, let's see, it's on page 32 of this, and it's called Cooking with Hitchhikers and Couch Potatoes on Teams. If you ask any student, what do they not like about teamwork? They do not like the fact that other people, that sometimes they get stuck on teams and they get stuck doing all the work. That is the number one complaint. And so with this essay, what I do is I tell students, some students will want to take advantage of you on teams. And here's how they will do it. And so I ask students in my class to read this essay, and they have to write a little reflective essay. And it can just be a paragraph or two. It's basically so I know they've read this essay, but what this does is it puts the class on notice that I am not going to accept you know, Sally said this and John said this, and it's just a little misunderstanding in between them, which is often what professors do. Because it's often not a misunderstanding. It's, you know, maybe John just was blowing off the So I say if a student does not participate, you can leave their name off the assignment. And that gives the students, it empowers them in a way that's very much like the real world. And so this really it removes a lot of the problems of doing team activities in classrooms. So a lot of times professors are just they're not aware of how easy it is to be fooled. You get two students coming up, each of them complaining about the other. Who is right? There can be people who can really be not doing anything, and they can put it all on the other person. So we can't figure those kinds of things out. So if you give the students the power, that really, really helps. So allow them to be. So on my syllabi, for example, I look at names. So I don't let them fire a student by themselves, but I let them leave over the names, and that pretty much does all that's necessary. So I also allow the students to evaluate one another. I have a peer evaluation form, and I'll be honest with you. So the peer evaluation form is on page 30. I will only look at them if somebody's really a problem. But most of the time, I just don't need to worry about the student evaluations. One thing is, if a student comes up to me and says, I suffer from test anxiety, I'm really, you know, that's my problem. I'll go and look and see what their teammate says. And by golly, 9 times out of 10 is that student just doesn't do any of the homework and isn't performing well on the team at all. And so this gives me sort of a little side view of what that person is really like to do. There are peer evaluation systems that you can use, but I usually don't go through that just because it's a really tough to do. So there's also, you can hand out the evaluation progress on effective team functioning, which is also important. And if there's trouble, then it's useful. Usually if you set them right and you have your typers and calculators article that people are pretty happy with. Sometimes I'll run a crisis plan. For example, if a student is coming up and saying there's a problem with another student on the team, for example, they're dominating all the conversations, then I might put a crisis plan at the beginning of class and just ask students, you know, there might be a problem. What would you do if on your team you encountered someone who's dominating the conversation? I want you to take 2 to 3 minutes, brainstorm how you would handle this, and the methods can be either legal or illegal. Not that I'm condoning any of those, you know, which starts giving them funny things, right? And then I might jot down some of the ideas that we come up with. And that puts that person on notice that they need to be a little careful. So I think most of us are already aware of reasonable percentages of how to assign group activity. And so here are some percentages. And if you like, if anyone would like a copy of this presentation, I can to share it, just pop it on. And if you have a team and it's just the worst team in your entire course, they're all complaining about each other, are you a bad instructor? No. The bottom line is no instructional method comes with 100% guarantee. And the reality is, if you have 10 students, for example, in class, one of them is, you know, most of them are functioning well, one of them is problematic, well, basically, it's a really dysfunctional team. Everybody else is learning as much as or more as when you taught individually or in a traditional way. You only have one bad team. Well, congratulations. That's really good teaching. Thank you so much.